spangled red, white, and blue. We'll fight till the cause is victorious for Lincoln and liberty too.
Hi everybody. Today I'm going to start with a book about our favorite president, Abraham Lincoln. Who was Abraham Lincoln? Look at that drawing of him. And we know that he was the president, don't we? So who was Abraham Lincoln? It was April 11th, 1865. After 4 terrible years, the American Civil War, the war between the North and the South, was almost over. Now it was clear that the North would win. President Abraham Lincoln had fought the war to prevent the rebel South from leaving the Union. He wanted the country to stay one country, the United States of America. From the window of the White House, the president addressed the big crowd. Can you see that? He's talking to a great big crowd there. His 12-year-old son, Tad, was at his feet collecting the pages of the speech as the president dropped them to the floor. A man in the audience called out, "What shall we do with the rebels?" Someone answered, "Hang them!" Before the president could answer, Tad piped up, "No, we must hang on to them." Sometimes Tad understood his father better than anyone else. President Lincoln wanted to hang on to the defeated southern states. He wanted to make them feel that once again they were part of the Union. He wasn't interested in revenge. Lincoln was a remarkable president and a remarkable man. He hoped to turn his enemies back into his friends. Chapter 1 is called Life in a Log Cabin. The man who is often called America's greatest president was born on February 12, 1809, in a crude log cabin in Kentucky. It was just 18 feet long and 16 feet wide. It had a dirt floor and no windows. So look at that. It's not very big, maybe about the size of our living room or one room in our house. And that was the log cabin his whole family lived in. His father, Thomas Lincoln, was hardworking and quiet and famous for his honesty. He'd had little schooling, just enough to sign his name. Abraham's mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was intelligent and curious. She could read a little, but she couldn't write at all. The Lincolns were poor, and they moved from one small farm to another, trying to scratch out a living. When Abraham was 7, the family moved from Kentucky to Indiana. And this shows the inside of the log cabin. And this was their family. They just worked really, really hard, living on farms. One reason for the move was that Kentucky was a slave state, while Indiana was a free state. The Lincoln family hated slavery. Abraham later said that he was naturally anti-slavery as far back as he could remember. Eventually, the Lincolns ended up on a tiny farm in Illinois. And even as small children, Abraham and his older sister, Sarah, worked very hard. Abraham was tall and very strong for his age. By the time he was 8, he could pick up an axe and split wood as well as any man. He also helped with the plowing and the harvesting, but not hunting. When he was 7 years old, he shot a wild turkey. And you know what he discovered? He hated killing things. When Abraham was 9, his mother died. It was a terrible loss for him and his sister. Thomas Lincoln couldn't raise the children by himself. Their home was miles from most other people. So he went back to Kentucky and returned with a new wife. And that shows Abe chopping wood when he was just a young boy. He was so strong. Sarah Bush Johnson was a widow with 3 children. She brought her furniture with her, real beds, a table, and chairs that seemed like amazing luxuries to the Lincoln children. Much as he missed his own mother, Abraham quickly came to love Sarah. She encouraged all his interest. He called her Mama and was much closer to her than his own father. Because of Sarah, Abraham remembered his childhood as a happy time. With so much work to do, there wasn't much time for schooling. Anyway, out in the wilderness, there weren't many schools. In Kentucky, Abraham had gone to an ABC school where he had learned the alphabet, but not how to read or to write. So this is a picture of his dad bringing back Sarah from when he went to Kentucky and he brought back her and her children, and Abraham was going to have a new mother. A wonderful thing for their family. In Indiana, Lincoln sometimes went to a blab school. That sounds funny, doesn't it? A place where all the students said their lessons out loud together. The schoolmaster listened and tried to pick out their mistakes through the noise. Abraham finished with school for good at the age of 15. Altogether, he had gone for only about 1 year. But he had learned how to read, and now he could teach himself anything he wanted. He read every book he could find. He once walked 20 miles to borrow one book. It took him a long time to finish a book. Many people thought he seemed slow and plodding, but his stepmother understood why he took so long to learn. He wanted to be sure he really understood everything. Sometimes he'd learn part of a book by heart. Because paper was expensive and hard to get, he wrote out passages on a piece of wood. When the wood got so black he couldn't see what he was writing, he would shave it off, and then he would start over again. People liked Abraham. He was so good at telling funny stories. He also was famous for practical jokes. He once managed to have 2 men who were getting married on the same day delivered to the wrong brides. People were still talking about that joke years later. It says here most of the books Abraham read as a child were ones his stepmother Sarah brought with her when she married his father. There was the Bible, and of course, and also Aesop's fables. He loved these fables, which taught him how to use funny little stories to make important points. He memorized passages from Shakespeare, and do you know what? He could still recite them when he was president. Another favorite book was a biography of George Washington. As a child, though, Lincoln couldn't have known that someday he would be considered just as great a president. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll continue another day. The next book I'm going to read is called Yakety Yak Yak Yak. Have you ever yacked too much? It means that you've talked too much. I did. Oh boy. So Yakety Yak Yak Yak. Walrus was riding in Yak's taxi. "Listen to me, Yak," he moaned. "This is important." "Important," said Yak. "You want to hear about something important? I'll tell you about something important." "Yak, stop," groaned Walrus. "Why, just yesterday," continued Yak, "I was talking to Stork and he said the same thing. Everybody says that to me. Listen, they say, or stop talking, they say. Well, I just think they're rude. And I say, if you can't wait to hear a person out and feel you have to interrupt all the time, it's just not polite. Let me tell you what Camel did today." "But Yak," wailed Walrus. Camel was just standing there shouting, "Taxi, taxi." "What a silly thing to yell. Anyone can see I'm in a taxi," continued Yak. "Why else would I have a sign on my roof that says taxi? It says taxi, and that's just what it is. So when anyone calls taxi, taxi, I stop. Yak's taxi service. I say, that's me. No job too small. We go anywhere. Service with a smile. Out-of-town rates cheerfully given. We get you where you want to go. Leave the driving to Yak. That's what I told Camel." "But Yak," cried Walrus, "I have to tell you something. Please, listen." Then when Camel got in, she said, "Stop talking and take me to the garage. My truck is broken." "Stop talking?" she said. "I mean, really, imagine that, telling me to stop talking." "But Yak," yelled Walrus. "And furthermore, everyone knows I never refuse a passenger, not even Nightingale. And you know what she's like, and I certainly wouldn't refuse Camel, especially when her truck is broken down and she has to get to the garage. No, sir, cheerful service, that's my motto. And another thing." "Please, Yak," sighed Walrus. "We just passed my house again for the 4th time. You keep driving around and around the block, and I'm getting dizzy. Please, Let me out." "What?" said Yak. "Past your house? Well, why didn't you say something? You have to learn to speak up, Walrus. You can't go around worrying so much. It's not good for you. It can make you dizzy." "But Yak," said Walrus. "Well, I'm sorry, Walrus, old pals," said Yak, "but I can't sit around all day listening to your troubles. I have to earn a living. Got to get over to the bank and pick up Rabbit. He gets downright testy if I'm late." "Goodbye, Yak," said Walrus, and Yak drove off. When Yak pulled up in front of the bank, Rabbit was waiting. "You are 11 minutes late," said Rabbit, looking at his watch. "I knew it," said Yak. 11 silly minutes, and you are making a big fuss." "I only mentioned it," said Rabbit, "because—" "Rush, rush, rush," complained Yak. "Everybody is always in such a big hurry. No time for anything important anymore. Where's the fire, I say? Why all the hustle and bustle?" I said that to Quail on Tuesday, and do you know what she said? She said, "I'm not sure." Now I ask you, what kind of an answer is that? Nobody's sure anymore. That's the problem. "Yak," said Rabbit. "That sign said road closed." "And that's not the only problem," said Yak. "Just look around you. Everybody has problems. Too much, not enough. It's all the same. I was just telling Walrus about what Camel said to me today." "Yak," said Rabbit, "this road is definitely closed for a reason." Camel just stood there waving her arms and shouting, "Taxi! Taxi!" continued Yak. "And when she finally got in the taxi, she told me to stop talking. Imagine that! Stop talking, she says to me. Folks are always telling me that. I don't understand it. Anyone can see that I am most agreeable and that I like a good conversation. I'm not picky. I'll talk to anybody, even Nightingale. And you know what she's like." "Uh-oh, watch out." "I'll tell you what's bothering me," said Rabbit. "See what I mean?" said Yak. "You have just driven this taxi into a hole," said Rabbit. "Oh, no." "It really is interesting to find out the kinds of things that bother people," said Yak. "This morning, Walrus was really dizzy, and I figured that he worries too much, and that's what causes those dizzy spells. And that, hey, Rabbit, where are you going?" Oh my goodness, look at Yak. And that's the big trouble with everyone today. They're all in a hurry. Rush, rush, rush. Nobody has time to listen anymore. Listen, did I tell you about Walrus's dizzy spells? It really is serious. And there's Yak driving to the tow truck driver. Does he even realize what he's done? Oh my goodness. He's just talked so much that he hasn't listened, he hasn't been safe, and he needs to calm down and think and listen to his friends, doesn't he? Yes, he does. So next time you're yakety yak 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 yakking too much, stop a minute and think about what you're doing and listen to other people. And I am going to read some more cool stuff about animals. It says, "Is it true that sloths are very slow?" Now, my grandson Shane just loves sloths, and he could answer that question. The answer is yes. Sloths move very slowly on land and in trees, but surprisingly, sloths are excellent swimmers and can even hold their breath for 40 minutes. But this is a fun fact. It takes about 1 month for a sloth to travel 1 mile on land. Now, when I walk every day, I usually walk about 2 miles. If I were a sloth, it would take me 2 months to walk what I can walk in a day. Do ostriches bury their head in the sand when they are afraid? Let's see what it says. Nope. Besides listening for danger with their ear to the ground, Ostriches sometimes eat sand to help digest their food. Do cows living around the world speak in different moos? I never thought about that. I say, old chap, did you say moo? That's what the cow was saying. It says yes, believe it or not. Depending on where they live, cows' moos do have very different accents. Here they have some cows saying moo, moo, mooey, meow. Oh, that's a cat. What? So they do have a little different way of saying moo. Do dogs really age 7 years compared to 1 year for a human? Let's see if that's true. It says yes, but not just 7. Depending on the breed, the formula can range from 4 to 13 years per human year to estimate your dog's age. It says here, can a groundhog really predict the weather? Every year in February, they watch for the groundhog to come up to see if winter is going to be over. It says yes, sometimes. February 2nd, Phil comes out of his burrow and decides if it's the first day of spring. If he sees his shadow, he goes back into his burrow, meaning there will be 6 more weeks of winter. Fun fact, Phil's predictions are correct only 28% of the time. And the next question says, do humans and koalas have anything in common? Look at that koala bear and a human. It says yes. Humans, koalas, and even gorillas and chimpanzees share the same type of fingerprints. Look at your fingerprint. Look at that. And there's a great big fingerprint. So they have the same type of fingerprints that humans have. Fun facts. Koalas are not bears. They spend most of their lives sleeping in trees and like to eat eucalyptus tree leaves. Wow, so they're not bears. And one more. Do cats always land on their feet? I've heard that they do, but let's see what the answer is. No, not always. However, cats have the amazing ability to twist in midair, landing safely on their feet. But they don't always land on their feet. So we're going to stop right there for now. And I hope you'll have a good evening. And I just hope that you're reading, you're enjoying school, you're doing your best, you're being good for mom and dad. Do your chores, do the best that you can do. Be the best you that you can be. And I love you so much. Good night. Night.
Amen.